Flash Report. Flash Report.
We are interrupting our scheduled programming for a developing situation in Southeast Asia. The standoff in the Philippines, which began 4 days ago as a peaceful protest along the Epifanio de los Santos Avenue, or EDSA, has taken a catastrophic turn. Reports coming out of Manila indicate that forces loyal to President Ferdinand Marcos have breached the civilian barricades. We are receiving unconfirmed reports of heavy casualties. We go live now to our correspondent, who is positioned on the roof of a hotel overlooking the Ortigas intersection. What is happening down there?
The peaceful revolution is over. About 20 minutes ago, the stalemate broke. We watched as Marine units under the command of General Fabian Ver received the order to disperse the crowd by any means necessary. Unlike the images we saw yesterday, where nuns and civilians were stopping armored personnel carriers with flowers and rosaries, this time, the vehicles did not stop. We saw the 4th Marine Brigade open fire on the front lines of the protesters near Camp Crane. The Reformed Armed Forces rebels, led by Minister Enrile and General Ramos, are returning fire from inside the camp, but they are vastly outgunned. The streets are absolute chaos. Civilians are fleeing into the side streets of Quezon City, but the loyalist troops are advancing rapidly.
Has there been any word from the U.S. Embassy? In the past hours, there was talk of a possible evacuation for President Marcos to Hawaii to de-escalate the violence.
That is the critical missing piece. Sources close to Malacanang Palace tell us that President Marcos was packed and ready to leave around 9 p.m. local time. He was waiting for U.S. helicopters from Clark Air Base, but the call never came. We are told that the White House has strictly adhered to President Hart's non-intervention doctrine. The order from Washington was clear. No U.S. military assets are to be used to extract a foreign head of state. Without that exit strategy, Marcos felt backed into a corner. He decided to fight. And what you're seeing behind me is the result of that desperation. That was a mortar round. It looks like loyalist forces are shelling the rebel headquarters directly. This isn't a dispersal anymore. This is the start of a civil war.
Stay safe. We'll come back to you shortly. We are also getting a reaction from Moscow. General Secretary Gorbachev has released a statement calling the violence regrettable, but praising the United States for, quote, finally ending its imperialist practice of choosing leaders for sovereign nations. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Republican leaders are blasting President Hart, accusing him of abandoning a key Pacific ally to slaughter. Senator Dole has stated that the blood of Manila is on the president's hands. To recap, the peaceful people power movement in the Philippines has been crushed. President Marcos remains in the palace. His military is purging the opposition, and the streets of Manila are burning. We will continue to monitor the situation. Up next, we look at how this instability might affect the global helium-3 supply chain in the Pacific. Stay with us. Tensions in Washington are reaching a boiling point today as the death toll in Manila continues to rise. With the Philippine Civil War entering its 3rd day and the Marcos regime mercilessly cracking down on the opposition following the failed EDSA uprising, the Hart administration is facing a firestorm of criticism from both sides of the aisle. Moments ago, White House Press Secretary Kathy Bushkin stepped up to the podium to defend the president's controversial decision to withhold military aid and refuse asylum to Ferdinand Marcos. Let's go to that tape.
And the president continues to receive hourly updates from the embassy in Manila. We are urging General Ver and the loyalist forces to cease fire immediately and return to the negotiating table. Sam, ABC News.
Kathy, urging restraint hasn't stopped the tanks. We have confirmed reports that Cory Aquino has gone underground and that U.S. Marines at Subic Bay are literally watching smoke rise from Manila through their binoculars. The president had the assets to extract Marcos and end this bloodlessly. He chose not to. Does President Hart accept responsibility for the chaos we are seeing now?
Sam, the President accepts responsibility for the safety of the United States and its armed forces. What he does not accept is the premise that the United States is the guarantor of every regime in the Pacific. We spent 10 years in Vietnam trying to dictate the internal politics of Southeast Asia. President Hart was elected on a promise that we would not repeat that mistake.
So, preventing a massacre is considered interfering?
Deploying U.S. helicopters to extract a dictator against the will of his people is interfering, Sam. If Mr. Marcos has lost the confidence of his nation, that is a matter for the Filipino people to resolve, not the Pentagon. Helen, United Press International.
Kathy, this isn't just about Marcos. It's about the bases. If the opposition wins, or if the communists take advantage of this chaos, we lose Subic, we lose Clark. The Soviets are already expanding their influence in Latin America. If we lose the Philippines, how exactly does the president plan to track launches from the Soviet Far East? Or is he planning to track them from the moon?
Helen, you know I can't discuss specific strategic capabilities, but I will say this. The United States defense capabilities have evolved significantly in the last 5 years. Our assets in Jamestown and our satellite network have reduced our reliance on terrestrial geography.
That sounds like you're preparing to abandon the bases.
It sounds like I'm saying the United States will not be held hostage by foreign leaders demanding rent for loyalty. We desire a partnership with the Philippines, but it must be a partnership based on their stability, not our intervention.
Kathy, Senator Dole said this morning that this is the Kennedy weakness all over again. He claims the Soviets are laughing at us. If a Soviet naval fleet moves into Manila Bay under the guise of peacekeeping or aid, what is the president's red line?
The Soviet Union knows exactly where our red lines are. Providing humanitarian aid is one thing. Projecting military force into a U.S. allies sphere is another. But let's be clear, the instability in Manila was caused by 20 years of dictatorship, not 24 hours of American inaction. The president is betting on the future of a sovereign Philippines, not the survival of one man.
But the Philippines is burning now, Kathy.
And we are watching closely. Next question.
We are watching. A cool response from a White House that seems determined to rewrite the rules of the Cold War. But with reports coming in that the New People's Army, the communist insurgents, are seizing provincial halls while the military fights itself in Manila, many are wondering if President Hart's gamble has already failed. We'll have more on the strategic implications for NASA and the Department of Defense after the break.